Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Barbara Hamm Lee. Can you believe it? Just 1 month to go, and it's back to school time for elementary, middle, and high school students, and only about 3 weeks to go for college kids. Families are beginning to prepare. This weekend, you can get school supplies and clothing tax-free. But what are you doing to make sure your student is ready for academic success? Up next on Another View, we're talking about what you can be doing now to make sure your child is ready to succeed in school. And later in the show, our very own Jae Sinnett joins us with some sweet, soulful sounds to get us ready for the weekend. Another View is next, right after this news from NPR.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
And good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for listening to Another View. I'm Barbara Hamm Lee. I want to start by giving a very special thank you to Lisa Godley, Morgan Chase, and Victor Bowen for carrying things last week for me. In the 4 years that we've been doing Another View on the radio, this last Friday was the first time I ever missed it because of illness. But I tell you, a pinched nerve is pain like you would not believe. But things are much, much better. And to a listener who sent me information about osteoarthritis in the neck, you were right on cue, and I appreciate that. So thank you very, very much. Also want to say a special shout out to Tidewater Park Elementary School Summer University. We have 15 students here at WHRO, WHRV today. They've been touring the building. They've been watching how we put productions together, and they're listening to the show right now. So congratulations to you young people, Tidewater Park Elementary School Summer University. So, do you have a big calendar on the wall with red X's marking the days to go back to school? New school supplies, new outfits, and the latest backpack is all good stuff. But what about preparation for academics? What are some of the things that we as parents and mentors and grandparents can be doing now to get our kids back in the frame of mind of study and learning? Joining us to talk about it is Dr. Dwana White. She is principal of P.B. Young Elementary School in Norfolk. Hi, Dr. White. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. Ms. Terricita Sass, Assistant Vice President for Enrollment Management at Norfolk State University. How are you today?
Wonderful. Good afternoon.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate that. And joining us by phone is Ms. Adrienne Day, Principal at Booker T. Washington High School. Ms. Day, how are you?
I am fantastic.
That is great. So, I throw out that question to you all. What is, if I'll ask each of you from your perspective, what is one of the most critical things a parent can do right now to start to prepare their children to get back into the academic mindset? And I'm going to start with you, Dr. White, because you handle the little ones.
Yes, I think at this point, the most important thing is to get them back into a routine. During the summer months, we kind of get out of our routine. Mm-hmm. Children get out of the habit of having to get up at a certain time, having to report to places at a certain time. So it's good to get them back into the routine. I wouldn't say to start sending them to bed early just yet, but you might want to consider that in the latter weeks of August, getting them back into that bedtime routine. Mm-hmm. Also, establishing independence, because when they go to school, they're going to be responsible for remembering to take that homework out of their book bag. They're going to be responsible for ensuring that they bring their money to the cafeteria and those types of things. So just, kind of get them prepared for the independence that they're going to have.
I'm glad you brought up the point about the bedtime issue, because my granddaughter's going into kindergarten, and I was saying to my mother last night, it's probably time to start getting her ready to go back, go to bed early and so forth. But we got a little bit of time then, is what you're saying.
You do have a little bit of time. I wouldn't take the summer from her just yet. Not just yet.
Okay, Ms. Day, you have older students. They're middle. You have experience with middle school. You're at a high school. What should they be thinking about? And what can parents do?
Parents and students need to make sure that they know very simple things, what I call the ABCs which are what is expected academically, what is expected behaviorally, and what is expected for them to be able to move from course to course, which I call course progression. And so basically, very simple, knowing that they have to attend every day, basically they have to be in all of their classes on time, parents to make appointments after school or during a time that's not about the core classes, and then behaviorally, making sure that when they are in classes that they are doing the basics with behavior, taking notes, making sure they're engaged in the discussions, asking questions, knowing where they are, as far as if they don't pass a class or if they don't pass a test, what do I need to do to make sure that I do pass it the next time? And also course progression. Parents need to know now, and students need to know now, coming into the 9th grade and being in high school, what is expected. Every 9th grader that arrives to high school has only 4 years to graduate according to the state. So they have to know each year what courses they need to take and pass, what SOLs they need to take and pass. So it's really about getting an education right now on what is expected of me. And so some key people in knowing that would be the school counselors, the administrators, and a very, very important resource is the teachers, what the teachers are expecting of them. So right now what they should be doing is to look at what do I need in order to graduate in 4 years? What do I need to know as a 9th grader? What classes do I need to take? What classes do I need to take in 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade?
Okay. And now, Ms. Sass, it sounds like there's this progression. We're going from elementary school where you talked about more responsibility. Middle and high school, even more responsibility. You get to college, you're a freshman. Now, all of a sudden, mom and daddy aren't there. You've got campus life. You've got academics. How do you balance it? What should parents be saying to their freshman students going into college?
The first thing that I wanted to do was to make sure that I take this handoff from the college. And one of the things that the parents need to be doing right now is establishing some level of communication links. A lot of times the teenagers are not having a lot of conversations. They're exercising those muscles to be independent. So there's not usually a lot of conversation. And as they prepare to go to college, what a parent can be doing right now is establishing some type of systematic way that we're going to communicate. If it's going to be through text messaging, if it's going to be through Skype, once a week, we just need to kind of stay in touch, because one of the things that happens at this critical point that a parent can be doing is making sure that they have some rapport and know the communication coming from the college. Because of the independence of a lot of our teenagers, parents don't know. They don't know what the deadline dates are. They don't know when are you supposed to be moving. Because that information
is not sent to the parents. It's sent to the student.
So in a lot of colleges are sending that information electronically. So they are sending it via email, and it's not coming on in the mail, so the parent can't hold it up to the light and look to see what's in the envelope. So they need to be communicating and asking their young person, what are the dates? When are things due? When do you move in? When are the bills due? Let me see what you have. And that will reduce some of the anxiety and start the conversation of knowing we have to have constant communication so that when you do leave and we start that transition, we all know what we're expected to do. That will save so much of the anxiety the last week of school and all of the rush. You have a bill? It's how much? You're just telling me? So that communication piece.
Major anxiety.
Major stress.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to talk about what you're doing this summer to prepare your students academically. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Now, I want to ask a question because I heard, I was in a meeting, a school meeting recently, and a grandparent who was responsible for taking care of their grandchild and keeping them in school said, I feel kind of awkward going to the school. And I'm looking at you, Dr. White, because this was on the elementary level, but it could happen at any level. Back in the day when I was in school, things were very, very different. How can a parent start or a grandparent start to prepare themselves also so that they feel like they can still be a part of the system and still make sure that their grandchild is okay?
Well, they can start by taking a tour of the school. And believe it or not, in most schools, we have what's called a parent liaison. And that person is the liaison between the guardian and the school. And so they can set up a meeting to meet with the parent liaison. There are several opportunities to volunteer within the school. So that's a way that they can become connected to the school. When preparing the child for school, simply reading to that youngster is very helpful. You would be surprised at how helpful that is. They can go out, they can purchase workbooks from stores like Target or Walmart that deal with simple skills like phonemic awareness and decoding, simple arithmetic. They also, the computer technology, there's so much technology out there now. There's really not a need to buy anything. You can have your child go online, and there are tons of sites that will allow them to practice those simple skills. So there's a lot for us older parents and grandparents that will allow us to prepare our children and also to become connected to the school.
And speaking of older parents and grandparents, I do want to mention also that Delegate Don Hester is holding a listening session, and the issue is kinship care. There are lots of parents, lots of families now, they call them grand families, where the grandparents, the great-grandparents are the responsible parties for these young children, and she would love to hear from you all. It is on August the 6th from 2 until 4 p.m. at Lambert's Point Recreation Center. That's at 1251 West 42nd Street in Norfolk. This information is on our website, anotherviewradio.org. That is August the 6th from 2 to 4 p.m., a listening session talking about grandparenting and raising children and how to just do exactly what you were just talking about, making those connections. Boy, the phones are lit up. Let's go to Keith in Norfolk. Hi, Keith. You're on the air.
Yeah, how you doing?
Okay.
Yeah, what I did with my daughter, I showed her how much knowledge out there is available about currency, bookstores like Barnes and Nobles and such. Because back, when I was growing up, I used to get harassed for lottery just from reading a book. And then also, I think it's a good idea to, when in high school, to send kids to advanced classes that was help, going into college.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Keith, for that. Ms. Day, he talks about taking advanced courses. Let's talk about that a little bit from your perspective.
Yes, from my perspective, again, it even starts with the babies that Dr. White has. Students need to make sure that they're engaged at that level, and parents are encouraging students to read and do everything that they need to do to make sure that they're empowered and they're very good readers and writers. And so in the middle school, you want to make sure that even if your students aren't taking high school credited courses, which nowadays most middle school students will arrive to high school with high school credits. And so that will prepare them for those advanced level courses. But again, it starts even before they arrive, or now when they arrive to Dr. White, just making sure that they're very, very strong readers and writers, and they're able to communicate with all levels and not just adults, but their peers. And so
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but as educators, are you all concerned about the, texting, the instant messaging in terms of being able to write? Because it worries me, and as an adjunct professor at a university in this area, it was really a struggle for some students to learn how to write formally. And how is that being addressed? I'll start with you, Dr. Day, or Ms. Day.
I would definitely say that it can be concerning, but we have to make sure that as parents and educators and anyone in the community that we're sharing with students that, yes, this is an excellent form of communication as far as texting and Twitter and, instant messaging and that kind of thing. It's important to do that, but you need to also know what is expected of you when you're in a professional learning environment. Okay. And so, again, when you're in school, you have to make sure that you understand you still have to be grammatically correct in your writing. You still have to be able to express your thoughts and be able to give details. And those types of things are also tested on the high school level as well. And so we feel very confident that when our students leave, they are able, and that is according to the State Department as well, that they are able to do the writing and they are able to pull in electronics and dropping and dragging and that kind of thing as well in their writing. So it is moving to that most of us would think as parents. I have a teenager and a middle school student that all they know is texting and all they know is Twitter, but we still need to make sure that they understand you have to, when you're in a professional learning environment, when you're in school, when you go to college, when you're in a place, you have to know how to write.
Okay. Ms. Sass, we have a question from Facebook that said, isn't there a form college students can sign so that parents can get that information forwarded to them as well? You shook some folks up. You said all the information sent to the students.
I think that's a wonderful question. Something I actually wanted to cover. All of the institutions are mandated, and so are other institutions under FERPA. And that's the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And what it requires when it gets to the college level is once they turn 18, that information, they are an adult. And so what has to happen is the student must sign in their own writing that the parent, grandparent, custodian, whoever is paying the bill or just interested, they must sign and say, you are able to contact the school, you are able to talk to my professors, you are able to pay my bill when I call and I ask, how much does it cost? And that is a wide awakening for a lot of parents because they say, well, I want to know what the grades are, and we do not have a release. And the law requires that we let the student know that if at any time they want to take that person off, that they may. And with 2 children in college, my response is, if you take me off, I will not pay.
There you go. Because that is the power of the purse still. Annie joins us from the Eastern Shore. Hi, Annie. You're on the air.
Hi there.
Hi.
I wanted to say, back in the old days, my parents started us all off with a checkbook around age 16. And we had been receiving a small stipend allowance that was associated with jobs around the house, and so we knew how to handle the checkbook. And so when we went off to college and we received another small stipend to handle while we were in college, we had to manage our funds that way. And I'm afraid a lot of kids that have Visa cards and MasterCards and ATM cards lose track of where that money is coming from because it doesn't come from the plastic.
Absolutely.
And my second suggestion is an excellent book that I discovered. My daughter referred it to me. It's called The Read Aloud Handbook. And for grandparents out there, I would highly recommend this book as a baby shower gift. It's The Read Aloud Handbook by Jim Trelease. He was a journalist, retired. And it's a wonderful, wonderful resource, not only for parents, but also in terms of great books for kids from 0 on up. And
Okay.
I would encourage parents to begin reading before they leave the hospital delivery room.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your call, Annie. We appreciate that. Ms. White, I see you shaking your head. Reading, it really is beyond fundamental. I mean, it is critical.
It is truly critical. And as the caller stated, it is so important to start reading when they're in the womb. You would really be surprised at how just reading to your child helps them to prepare for school. One, it builds a vocabulary. Students that are read to have a more advanced vocabulary, and that helps when we're looking at comprehension and just understanding the basics that are taught in school. So yes, reading is critical. So those read aloud books that the callers discussed, very crucial, very crucial.
So I'm going to ask each of you, from your perspective, when should the parent back off? Because now think about it. If for elementary school kids, normally you're at PTA, you're involved, you bring the cupcakes. I mean, you're there. Middle school, high school, it kind of drops off, but then you also have the phenomenon of the helicopter parent at the college level. So I want to take each of you individually. So let's start with elementary school. Ms. White, when should a parent back off at all?
Well, in my opinion, the parent needs to be very, very involved. So they really do not need to back off. However, you do have to give your kindergartner, your first grader, space to grow. So you may start the year out walking them to class. At some point, you have to allow them the independence to be able to walk to class. You have to allow them the independence to be able to complete some of their homework independently. So they do need some independence, but as a youngster, they do need your constant monitoring, and they need to see you involved in the school.
Okay. Now, Ms. Day, middle and high school.
Middle and high school, I always chuckle because the first day of school, you always have at least one parent that's still wanting to go around, even in the middle school or the high school, kind of wanting to go around with their child on the first day of school. And I usually see that parent and I say, come over with me. That's really not a good idea on this level. Come on and I can kind of, show you some other ways that you can be involved. Because involvement is very, very important, but it looks very different. We don't want in any way for a parent to back off. Don't back off for us, even on the high school level, until it's graduation day. So we need involvement throughout the high school years and throughout the middle school years, of course, but it just looks differently.
Okay, so how does it look? Give us some examples.
It looks like, as far as grades, it looks like every week you're monitoring their grades. You're not necessarily looking in their notebook, but you're looking on online eSimler, is what we call it. It's an online view of the grade book. So you're able to look at grades and ask questions. Well, did you turn this assignment in? So you're able to communicate and be involved with the school because you can communicate directly to the teacher that way, directly to the administrators, the school counselors. So you can communicate differently without having to be like on their backs. I tell parents not to look at grades every day. Do it weekly. And also there is a filter or a program, a way that you can actually have it email you so that it alerts you if an assignment is missing, but you still don't want to launch immediately on the student. You want to be able to ask some questions because if not, you'll push the student away. So we still want you to be involved, but it looks differently. That's one way. The other way is having parent-teacher conferences. They're after school, so the students' peers don't necessarily see them because it's in a way that, you're coming to ask questions to the teachers. So emailing the teachers, calling the teachers, that's a way to always stay involved.
Okay. And once they get to that college campus, Ms. Sass?
We have a lot of undoing to do what these two ladies have just said. Because what has to happen is now you are not calling the teacher. You do not have an online resource to look at their grades. You're not checking their work.
And so you're training the parents at this point.
At this point, what we're doing is we're saying now that transition has to take place and you have to start backing off. And the key word amongst all of us is we're raising these kids to be independent at some point. So now what we're doing is we're pulling back and we're saying the way that the parent can stay involved is by developing that communication and saying, how are your grades? When they come home for Christmas, ask to see them because they are not mailed. No one mails grades anymore. You have to, they're online for the student to see. So the parent needs to say, how are you doing? Give them encouragement. Let them know, are you having any trouble? Look for signs of things where that you may need to say, they have tutoring, they have resources available. How are you doing? So you have to give little cues.
So if they come home at Thanksgiving and they don't have any books studying for that midterm, they pretty much need to pay attention to that.
You need to say, tell me how you're doing. Give me some sense of what you're doing. But we also need to make sure that we're letting them know how to get resources, teaching them to fish. Not that the parent is calling and asking the instructor, not that the parent is saying, what are you doing about each thing? It's teaching them how to use the resources, how to reach out to make sure that they are becoming even more independent. Because if these two ladies come to us and say, I want to see their grades, and we have parents, I want to see their grades, I want to talk to the teachers. You don't have a teacher-parent conference when you're in college. So,
okay, one really important question for you, and I guess also for you, Ms. Sass, Ms. Day, is the whole idea of financial aid and preparing for financial aid, because you should not wait until the senior year. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
And currently, students and their families can begin as early as the 9th grade, going on to FAFSA.ed.gov, and they can actually start planning and seeing what types of things that those families would be able to qualify for if their income stayed the same. So a lot of times there's kind of a misnomer that there's money out there and my kid is going to have resources. This is a very different day. And so a lot of times, particularly with a lot of middle class families, they do not qualify for a lot of need-based aid. So there's a rude awakening and this kind of rush at the end. How am I going to afford to pay for school?
So people would say ninth grade, really. That's when you should really start that process. So Ms. Day, what goes on in the high school to start gearing people in that direction?
Right. I can even go back to middle school as well. The middle school counselors also start asking questions saying, are you planning to go to college? They start planting that seed, but also they have Access Foundation nights in the middle school. So they actually start getting, that conversation taking place early on in middle school. In high school, we all have Access counselors, and they work with students with financial aid. They make sure that they know about scholarships. They make sure that they know about what is out there for them based upon the careers that they are looking for. Also, the guidance counselors work with them. All high schools have a scholarship chair, so they're always looking and researching and empowering parents and students to do the same, to look for scholarships and what's available for them. And then also with that, it's very important that the students are working hard to get their GPA up.
Okay.
And so that's working hard. That goes back to Dr. White's babies, making sure that they're very strong readers, so that they're doing readers and writers, so that they're making sure that they're doing the very best that they can do in all of their classes to have a very high GPA. The GPA in high school is in college is just as important as a credit score for an adult. So that's what we like to liken it to as well. So it's very important.
That's a really good way to match that up in terms of the importance of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, the caller that called in and talked about reading to your child and about the students using the credit cards. Also, high schoolers have to take a course called Economics and Personal Finance in order to graduate from high school now. And so that will also help them with being able to manage their funds, knowing it's going to take this amount of money for college. I'm going to need to be able to budget. And that's an actual course that they have to take, which also has an assessment attached to it.
Okay. Go ahead.
I wanted to say, too, when we're talking about resources, scholarships, I remind people the root word of scholarships is scholar. And so the academics is extremely important, and the AP courses that we talked about earlier can actually save the families money because they actually will take the place of courses that they don't have to take and pay for when they're in high school.
Okay, so you can take those courses in high school
so
and once
get
they get
credit.
To college, they already have the credit.
They will have credit.
And that
will cost the family less.
Okay, we've got about 2 minutes left in this conversation, so I'm going to ask each of you to just give a really quick bullet, something for the parents to walk away with. And let me start with you, Ms. Adrienne Day, principal at Booker T. Washington.
I would say remember the ABCs: attendance, behavior, and course progression.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate that. That's Adrienne Day, principal at Booker T. Washington High School. Ms. Sass.
I would say that remember that this is a transition into adulthood, and you need to start learning how to treat them as adults, trusting them and trusting that what you have done as you have reared this particular child is going to ring solid once they leave and go to college.
That's Terricita Sass, Assistant Vice President for Enrollment Management at Norfolk State University. Thank you so much. And the final word comes from Dr. Dwana White.
Just setting up routines, getting them ready and prepared for routines throughout the day, because, of course, school is very structured, and also reading to your youngsters, especially those going into pre-kindergarten and kindergarten.
Read, and read some more. That's Dr. Dwana White, principal of PB Young Elementary School here in Norfolk, and I wish all of you the best school year because I know while the kids are still having summertime, you all are working and getting prepared for them to come, so that is a really good thing. And we will be right back with our next guest, who is going to bring us some soulful music to help ease us into the weekend. Jazz great Jae Sinnett will join us in just a moment.
What goes round?
welcome back. You've been listening to my favorite cut on the latest Jae Sinnett CD. The song is called Subject to Change.
No, the CD is called Subject.
Oh, I'm sorry. The song is called What Goes Round, and the CD is called Subject to Change, which I think is an appropriate title for what our favorite jazz artist says is his last jazz album. We're very lucky to have Jae Sinnett as a radio host and producer here at WHRV-FM. You know him and his show Sinnett in Session, and he joins us now to talk about his latest endeavor and some changes to the music industry. Hi, Jay.
Hey, Barbara.
Seriously? The last
My last
one?
all jazz one. I'm not going through it again.
Going through it.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
This one, from beginning to end, this was almost like a 2.5-year project for me in terms of, because I wrote all the music except Sonny, but I did a completely different arrangement on Sonny. And that's the only cover on the record. But it's also, there was an arranging element to it too. So a lot of the songs are sextet, so there's 3-horn part harmony and arranging.
Which was very different for me to listening to too, because and I will mention, because I was at your concert that you did. You kind of introduced the music here at WHRO, and
that was the first concert. Actually.
Hearing the horns have harmony the way as much in the songs. I just thought that was a very interesting technique.
Well,
music.
I mean, it's not new in jazz.
Right,
I mean, that's been going on, but it's new for me. Some of my earlier recordings, I have horns and harmonies, but I didn't do those arrangements. This was the first time
that you.
Well, no, I did. I take that back. I did the arrangements on Sinnett hearings, but Blue Jay was sextet. That's my only other sextet recording, and someone else, Dan Blunk, did the arrangements on that. But I wrote the music. This is the first time I've done the 3-part horn writing, arranging, and all the writing. And it was a challenge for me, a unique challenge for me. And being a drummer, it's interesting because we as drummers don't deal with harmony and melody every day. We're rhythm specialists, So it's like I've always been a little insecure about writing the good melody. I can give you a great beat, all kind of beats, crazy beats, but that melody, writing that melody for drummers it's always been a little challenging. So I worked really hard and trying to construct melodies that I think people are going to remember a month down the road, because it's hard.
Exactly.
In music today, regardless of genre, this, you hear something, you kind of like it, and most people forget about it a couple weeks down the road.
Or they go, who was that? Who did that?
Right.
We're no longer is it that connection of I think, artist, label, everything that just kind of draws you straight back to that music.
But you and I are from a generation that we bought the album.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we knew that the song we heard on the radio wasn't the best song on the album.
Exactly.
you know what I mean? So, some of y'all out there know what I'm talking about. And we couldn't wait to get into the whole album. My opinion is that Napster and iTunes destroyed the concept of listening to the album. Now it's about the cool song download, and it's usually one song. And a lot of people, there are exceptions, of course, but a lot of people don't seem to be that interested in hearing what else the artist has to say. But on the other side of it, I've heard many people say, well, a lot of the music they're hearing today, 2 or 3 songs is about
all they could take anyway, right?
Off the record.
Well, but here's the question. What does that do to the artist? Because as you write, Subject to Change has 8 different cuts on it. You're saying different things. You have different messages that you're getting across.
Particularly in jazz.
Exactly. So what does that do to the artist when only one perspective is put out there because someone deemed this is the hit song?
Here's the crazy thing about this, Barbara. The industry set this up with Apple. Say, well, we have this new model we'd like to try, the downloading of the song. What that ultimately benefited were the musicians that were selling millions of records anyway. Jazz artists and classical artists, blues artists don't sell that volume. So it automatically hurts us tremendously in our royalty payments that we receive. Because, for example, Spotify, they pay less than a penny. No joke. I think it's like 0.06 cent per listen. So in order for me, the artist, to be able to make $100, somebody would have to play one of my songs on Spotify at least 20,000 times. And in jazz, that's a gold record.
Absolutely.
But for me to get maybe $100, somebody would have to play my song, one of my songs, about 20,000 times on Spotify. So when you look at the model that the industry created, for jazz, that would be significant in number of plays. Pop artists that are selling 5 million
20,000
records
is nothing.
Is nothing. So they can afford to go ahead and say, okay, well, you got 50,000 listens, you make $200, $300, but they're getting millions of listens. So it benefits them. But considering most of the music today, regardless of genre, is released by independent artists, indie artists, our royalty structure and what we get paid is just absolutely crazy.
So I want to come back to that in a minute, but I want all of you jazz aficionados out there to give us a call at 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. What is Jae Sinnett going to do if he's not doing jazz? 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So this new way of listening to music, downloading music, then for the jazz artists, does the model change that you have to do more live performances, more concerts? I mean, how do you balance it? Because you can't live off of $100.
You can't live off the royalty payments. Okay, let me break this down. There's BMI. Like if you look at a record and you see the song title, then you see the artist title, then you see something that says BMI or ASCAP. BMI and ASCAP, they're performance rights organizations. What they do, they pay the composer and or the publisher of a song. Sound Exchange pays the artist for terrestrial broadcasting, like Pandora or Sirius XM or cable music choice, cable TV music channels. And the problem is that what Sound Exchange, radio doesn't pay the artist. So in other words, if I think Crazy Willie Nelson may have written that song, Patsy Cline did it. So in other words, if it got played on the radio, Willie Nelson, BMI would pay, or ASCAP would pay Willie Nelson as the composer.
As the composer, okay.
But Patsy Cline wouldn't get paid as the artist. So what Sound Exchange is doing is actually paying the artist on terrestrial radio, but they don't do it on regular radio, like what we do. So that's one thing that they're trying to change, that the artist can get paid as opposed to just the composer or the publisher. And for using their sound recording. And it should be fair. And even the side people, the side men and women on the dates as well, get a certain percentage.
So it sounds like that $1 bill is getting sliced up in a whole lot of different ways.
And, I see so much, for example, Pandora. There's somebody at Pandora loves my Bums Rush composition off of my It's Telling CD. And over the past 3 years, they played that song almost 3,800 times. Now, the next song on there was about 600 times. So, and then I see my Sound Exchange statement, it's like $11. But it's just insane. The model is set up to where independent artists are just getting ripped off. I'll just come out and say it. We're getting ripped off.
So are young people then encouraged to still go into music? I mean, it wasn't part of it. Obviously, you love the genre and you love the music and you like composing. Does the music not matter? I mean, the money not matter?
Here's why I record, Barbara, and this will answer your question. I record for 2 reasons: to document my work, and I've pretty much done that with jazz, and to use the CD as a marketing tool to try to get performances booked with presenters and stuff like that. So ultimately, we make the most money on our performances. We don't make, or the sale of the hard copy CD. So I want to encourage everybody out there. I have a new CD out. Buy the hard copy, folks. That's where we make most of our money back. Yes.
Okay.
Or download the whole record.
Producers telling me that we should play a little bit of Sunny and let people hear a little bit of it.
Totally rearranged.
Victor's back there. He's so into the music. He kind of got lost there. What do you think about when you say, all right, I'm going to take a cover and I'm going to do it my way? How does that happen?
Well, in this version, I've always liked the song. Bobby Hebb wrote it back in the late 60s, and it was kind of most pop hits are simple, from a harmonic and rhythmic perspective, simple melodies, but it's a catchy melody. And the pianist in my trio, Justin Coughlin, I heard Justin do it in his trio, but he did it more with a almost like the feel of the original song.
Right.
And I heard him do that, and I said, I can change this. I have an idea, another way to approach it. Keep the melody the same, but I put more of an Afro-Cuban 6/8 rhythm on it and totally reharmonized it. So you still have the melody, but you have a
and that's what catches you right in the beginning.
So it's a rhythmic, it's the rhythmic thing.
So when you go to sleep, do you dream music? I mean, do you always think about music and how to compose music?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I was having this conversation with Justin because he was, writing for his new record, and we were talking about, how do you know if you have something meaningful? And I said, that's a profound question, really. And I told him, I said, Justin, if you write motifs, I carry this little micro cassette recorder around with me, and I'll get little ideas, and I'll hum. I probably have 500 little melodic ideas in this cassette recorder.
I guess if you're going to be a musician, you got to know how to sing.
Well, only you can hear. Only I hear it, though. Nobody else hears that. And I said, if the idea lives with you, then pay attention to it. If you can't remember what that idea was, like after tomorrow, then
probably not a good idea.
Not a good idea.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to talk with Jae Sinnett. We're talking about jazz. We're talking about music. The thing I hear, Jay, all the time is people saying there's nowhere to go to hear good jazz. I hear people our age saying that.
Well, let me give you the example. I'll do it this way. When Havana Nights, we had Havana Nights. It was a fantastic,
and it was wonderful,
fantastic jazz venue. And when they closed after 2 years, well, I want to get this out on record because it was 3 venues that had to sustain itself. So a lot of people say, "Well, see, the jazz club failed." No, the jazz club did not fail. There was a restaurant, then there was a private cigar membership bar, and then there was the jazz club. The jazz club was packed every weekend, and it held its own. You had to look at the restaurant. If it's empty at 7 o'clock, primetime dinner hours, then you got some issues there. But one had to feed the other, and since they weren't the biggest one was the restaurant. If that couldn't feed,
the jazz club was not enough to sustain
3 venues.
But it was very intimate and very nice to go there. And I wonder, did they think, well, expanding maybe the size of the jazz club, since the jazz was working, might have worked?
Well, that piece of real estate too,
Yeah.
But I also look at it compared to my music. When you said this is going to be my last recording, which it is all jazz. I'll still record down the road, but so many people have said, "Man, why is this your last?" I said, "I have 12 jazz recordings out. How many do you own?" And they said, "Oh man, I was going to get a copy, man. I was going to buy one of your CDs, And I'm like, "Well, there you go." Same with the jazz club. People said, "Why? Wow, is the Havana Nights closing?" I said, "It's been open for 2 years. Have you ever been there?" And they would say, "No, I haven't had a chance to make it out." I'm like, "Well, there you go."
Okay. Let's see. Oh, I thought we had a call, but I guess they're still figuring that out. So let's go on to talk about, as a matter of fact, let's listen to the Flea Flicker. Do you have that one, Victor? So what did you want to send us with Flea Flicker? What are we talking? What are you trying to tell us?
Do you know? Have you ever heard the term flea flicker? Mm-hmm. Do you know what it is?
No.
It's a trick football play.
Oh.
It's like when the quarterback, the center would snap the ball to the quarterback.
Right.
The quarterback would turn around, hand the ball off to the running back. Running back, it thinks that they're going up the middle, but the running back turns around, flops the ball back, tosses the ball back to the quarterback, and then the quarterback passes the ball. Yeah, so it's an old trick play. It's about deception. And so I said, well, let me put that deception, that tricky kind of, quirky kind of syncopation to music. So that's where I got the concept for this song.
That's where that came from. Let's see. Mary Alice joins us from Franklin. Hi, Mary Alice. You're on the air.
Hi, Barbara. Hi, Jay.
Hello.
It's a pleasure to talk to you. I don't think I've ever talked to you before.
Oh, wow.
I listen, and I wanted to let you know I'm a leadership circle person.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
And I pledge on your Sunday pledge break.
Well, thank you.
In the spring.
That is fantastic. What do you love most about Jay's music, Mary Alice?
Oh, my gosh. Well, I think he has a wonderful variety, and I like the comments that he makes about the performer and the music. In fact, I can segue into my next question that might give your show a boost, Jay. And what do you think about you and WHRV syndicating your show?
Okay, let's talk about that. Thanks for the call, Mary Alice. We appreciate it.
I mean, first of all, that's out of my realm. I don't have. That's not for me to make that decision. I would love to have my show syndicated in some capacity, but that's not for me to decide. That's up to the station.
It is, and it truly is up to the station because there's a lot involved in syndication. But you've been here 24 years. 24 years now.
I'm a veteran.
Yeah, I'd say.
I've earned my stripes.
I'd say. So what do you see in new musicians today that perhaps is different or fresher, or I don't know, what's different about today's musician? And I'm talking about in the jazz realm versus the old school.
I don't see the same level of intense study being applied. And so when I hear the music, you have one or two extremes, Barb. You have where the study is not, the time is not being put into the intense study. So the music suffers. Or you have the other side where the musicians want to learn how to play this, technically virtuosic kind of performance, to appease other musicians. But then what ends up being missed in that process is melody. So the melody is the biggest vanishing musical item in songs today. It's like, how do you write melodies? We have to keep these kids or get them back to focusing on how to write melodies and forget all this heady kind of stuff. Just
back to the basics.
Put some feel back into the music. Play something that we can remember, a month down the road.
And that's the key. Let's see. John joins us from Norfolk. Hi, John. You're on the air.
Oh, thanks. Listen, it's John, and I love what Jay is saying. It's really tremendous. I'm with the Musicians Union, and I'd like to make a point.
Mr. Lindbergh.
Hey, now you gave me away, Jay. How about that?
You got about a minute before we're out of time. Go ahead.
Okay. What I'd like to say is, even historically with pop music, I know a guy by the name of Davey Spinoza. He's a wonderful guitar player out of New York. He played lead guitar on Don McLean's American Pie. And to this day, he has received $50 for his work.
Yeah,
we hear that a lot.
That is how bad it is for the musician. And not only, if Jay produces something, he may get money, but his sidemen are not getting very much at all. And I've been on Capitol Hill 3 times now trying to get legislation in to get residuals for everybody on the recording session.
John, they're negotiating right now. There's this judiciary committee that's in the process as we speak to try to figure out how that can change. But right now, even the leaders, aren't really making enough money to do anything. I mean, the royalties we're getting paid, mechanical royalties, is just insane.
Yeah, I hate to have to let John go, but we have less than a minute left. So,
wow. Funny how time flies.
Funny how time flies.
Barbara, can I say very quickly?
Sure, absolutely.
You can get
Take
the
your
CD
time.
from cdbaby.com online. You can download the CD or buy a hard copy from cdbaby.com, or locally at Birdland Records, or through me. Just message me or friend me on Facebook. You can get an autographed copy directly through me. Amazon. Oh man, $15 they charge. They pay me $6.75 out of that $15. Then they ask me to ship it, which takes another $3. So I end up getting $3.
So you'd rather them go
to CD Baby.
Go to cdbaby.com and find Jae Sinnett, Subject to Change, which I'm going to say means that this may not be your last all jazz album. I'm just going to throw that out there.
The title's interesting.
Absolutely.
Though, right?
Yes, it is. Thank you so much, Jay, for joining us today.
Thanks, Barbara, for having me.
Absolutely. And before we leave you today, let me remind you of the community listening session being held by Delegate Dawn Hester on grand families. It's a conversation for grandparents and great-grandparents who are parenting their grandchildren. It's Wednesday, August 6th from 2 until 4 at Lambert's Point Recreation Center, 1251 West 42nd Street in Norfolk. Go to anotherviewradio.org for more information. And while you're there at anotherviewradio.org, sign up for our eView newsletter. It's a once-a-week reminder of upcoming shows. And then be sure to like us on Facebook. Next week, the Another View Roundtable is with us. And this time, the conversation will be very, very personal for one of our pundits. So you will not want to miss that conversation. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jae Sinnett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Victor Bowman is our audio engineer, and Alicia Washington answered our phones. I'm going to ask Victor if he can play my favorite song again on our way out today, which is What Goes Round, if he can pull that up. And I'm Barbara Hamm Lee. Have a fabulous weekend, everyone, and let's get together again next Friday at noon for Another View. Take us out, Jay.